Was and were. When we speak about people, places, or things in the past, we use was and were. I was in the classroom last week. We were in the classroom last week. We were at the beach, but the weather was awful. They were farm animals, so they were friendly. I was noisy yesterday. You were quiet last night. He was fast last week. We were slow yesterday. You were wonderful last year. They were awful last month. When we speak negatively about people, places, or things in the past, we use was not or were not. I was not in the classroom last week. I wasn't in the classroom last week. We were not in the classroom last week. We weren't in the classroom last week. The cafes were not open, so there was no food. The go-kart was not old, it was new. I was not noisy yesterday. You were not quiet last night. He was not fast last week. We were not slow yesterday. You were not wonderful last year. They were not awful last month. The go-kart wasn't old, it was new. The cafes weren't open, so there was no food. Negative contractions. I wasn't noisy yesterday. You weren't quiet last night. He wasn't fast last week. We weren't slow yesterday. You weren't wonderful last year. They weren't awful last month. When we ask questions about people, places, or things in the past, we use was and were at the beginning of the sentence. Was he in the classroom last week? Yes, he was. No, he was not. Were we in the classroom last week? Yes, we were. No, we were not. Were you at home last night? Yes, we were. No, we weren't. Was the refrigerator in the kitchen? Yes, it was. No, it wasn't. Yes, no questions. Was I noisy yesterday? Were you quiet last night? Was he fast last week? Were we slow yesterday? Were you wonderful last year? Were they awful last month? When we ask information questions about people, places, or things in the past, we use was and were after the question word who, what, where, when, why. Who was in the classroom last week? When were they in the classroom? Where was the pink phone? Why were you late for class? Information questions. When was I noisy yesterday? Where were you last night? What was fast last week? Why were we slow yesterday? Who was wonderful last year? When were they awful last month? The end. Thank you for watching.